Brazilian pasa kaya ano na, Edorin na. Ano ba sa? Dulce. Din na. Kano tayo?
Sir Robbie, baka ilipat ko po sa iyo yung intro spiel habang wala pa po si Sir Ed. Di pa
Okay.
po siya.
Teka, so wala na si MVP ha?
Sa Friday po siya tape na lang po ng 12:30.
Sino magte-tape?
Tayo rin po, pero iti-tape na lang po.
Okay, sige, thank you.
Hintayin na lang po natin si Ma'am Ami tapos start na po tayo. Sir, gumagana na po yung link ng docs. Yung link po ng docs gumana na po.
Okay na, okay. Thank you.
Sige po.
I'm here.
Hi.
Dito na ba to? Tapos na ba?
Yung dalawa raw mo.
Sir Ed, naka-plug na po tayo. Ikaw po intro, sir.
Okay na.
Sorry?
Sir, naka-plug na po tayo sa TV. Ikaw po intro. Ready na po tayo.
Okay, sino ba ang intro? Sorry, kapapasok ko lang eh.
Ikaw.
Ikaw na.
Ako ba?
Ikaw.
Teka. Hanapin ko muna yung yung Google Doc. Okay. Baga mag-load. Aaron, kumusta ang connection ko?
Okay naman, sir.
Init.
Init niya. Pati dito. Pinapawisan ako.
Init na yung araw.
No.
Ate Casey, pwede na tayo
Ay,
mag-control.
lumabas yung Google Doc.
Ay.
Teka, bukas Google Doc eh. Ayan.
Resend ko po sir yung link. Baka mali po yung link na nasend.
May mali. They had to resend it to me kanina. Hindi rin gumana sa akin yan.
Nag-resend? Teka ha.
Po, nag-resend po ako ng link na yun.
Oo nga, teka, may bago.
Okay. Hindi pa tayo kasi yun yung one.
Bakit ang tagal niya? Hindi na ganyan kabilis. Tagal ang Google Doc ito na.
Aaron, okay lang electric fan ka?
Okay lang sir, di naman naririnig. Okay na sir Ed?
May bago ba sa
Roger.
ABS?
Ha?
Any moves? May bago ba sa ABS? ABS.
Wala yung mga final. To sila Rufus. Yung mga bagong final ng ng mga congressman.
Okay.
Saka si Solgen, sabi niya, sisihin niya ang Congress, not NTC. Bakit tayo bumaba ng
1 minute po, Sir Ed, ready.
Ayaw.
1 minute. Sir Ed, countdown na po kasi sa
20
Facebook.
lang, sobrang lamig ng 20.
Sorry?
Ayaw niya
Countdown
magano.
na po ako sa Facebook, 1 minute po.
Roger, I can see it now.
Mabalik.
One crisis competing over another. As the country struggles to cope with the coronavirus crisis, it is also confronting China's territorial assertiveness, not to mention the threat to press freedom with the shutdown of ABS-CBN. Have enough defenses in these times of crisis. One crisis competing after another. As the country struggles to cope with the coronavirus crisis, it is also confronting China's territorial assertiveness, not to mention the threat to press freedom with the shutdown of ABS-CBN. Does the country have enough defenses in these times of crisis? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. And with us, of course, right now are Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, and Robbie Alampay of One News. Good evening, and it's Wednesday. It's a hump day.
Oo nga. Good evening.
Dalawang araw na lang, weekend na ulit.
But more than that, by Friday next week, tapos na yung 15.
No,
And
Hindi pa. Isa pa.
Next week na.
next week, one more. At ko
May
talaga
8 pa lang.
fever ka na, no? One more
hindi
week.
nga, next week. Kaya nga, next
May
week
8 pa lang.
Tapos na.
Pero sabi nung ibang mayor
Pagkas nga ng Biyernes na next week, tapos yung 15.
Oo nga. Isa
Pero yung ibang mayor ng Metro Manila, sabi nila magre-request ngayon si Paranaque Mayor, kasama na rin siya. Sabi niya hindi yata kaya nung May 15. Magre-request daw sila ng extension.
Pero at least, hopefully, mas localized na itong mga to. We don't have to consider Metro Manila as one entire region na naka-lockdown.
That's one of
that should be significant.
That's one of
that's one way of.
Yeah.
That's one way if you look at it. But if our guests in the past weeks are anything to go by, and we've been guesting mayors of Metro Manila, even yung mga mayors ng Metro Manila, even the ones who potentially would say na kaya namin magbukas ahead of everybody else, they were all saying the practicalities of it and the reality of it may require na we look at Metro Manila as one.
Yeah. Sa LRT pa lang, tingnan nyo. Kung gagalaw na yon under GCQ, ilang syudad yung dadaanan nun? Paano yun? Diba?
And sa LRT, they're looking at 10 to 15% capacity lamang ng isasakay just to keep social distancing.
Marami-rami pa rin yun, ha? And they have to wait 3 or 4 hours daw to wait in line. Pero marami-rami pa rin yun. Saka ang dami nga city.
Well, ano naman, Bok, everything is relative eh. I mean, sanay na tayo sa siksikan. So, ngayon, medyo konting distansya, maluwag na yun.
Saka hindi naman lahat bukas kagad.
Oh, but again, it brings up the question inevitably, no, of the capacity of the MRT and the LRT. Kung gaano kaayos na ba yan? Supposedly may mga naayos na, but to what extent? I forget which country, which city, but I was reading an article kanina lang na basically ang solusyon lang nila, simple lang, hinabaan ng tren, dinagdagan ng bagon. But it raises a question kung ganun ba kasimple para sa LRT, MRT natin yun, napahabain mo rin yung bagon.
May nilagay silang mga paint para sa physical distancing sa loob ng LRT, ng trains. Yan ang nakita ko. Nilagyan na nila kung saan ka tatayo, saan ka uupo. So they have to abide by that. So, baka pwede mangyari yun. Ganon.
Ang problema mo lang, pag nagsiksikan yan, nagtulakan, pag may nauna sa'yo sa linya,
hindi kaya siguro sinasabi rin ng mga opisyal natin, and they're starting to manage expectations, yung pila na binabanggit natin nag-uumpisa sa pila, 'di ba? Hindi man lang sa loob ng MRT, they were saying it will take X hours, 2 hours or 2 to 3 hours just to get to your train. That assumes na nasa
outside
pila
the station. Outside the station, in the street 'yon.
Well, at least
so for all you know,
may isang magandang balak sila para sa mga recipient ng aid. Yun ang isang iniisip ngayon ng gobyerno, i-extend daw yung pagbibigay ng SAP funding. Kasi para madagdagan pa yung mga tatanggap ng benefits ng ng social amelioration program. Yun ang isang extension.
We were talking kanina to Navotas Mayor Toby Chanco, nasa 21% pa lang sila.
Kaya nga. Pero
so mahaba-haba pa.
Yan ang problema. Pero medyo
anyway, Bok, let's bring in our guests already. I think they're waiting backstage. We have with us tonight again the Oro Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, who filed a bill for the extension of ABS-CBN franchise, or we might call it a new franchise actually, for 25 years. And we will also have Attorney Egon Quejosa, of course, the president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Yun, we have them both online already. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening po.
Thank you very much.
Good evening po.
I think the last time we had these gents with us, these attorneys with us, we were in the studio. Those were parang that was a long time ago.
Parang years ago.
Diba? Parang that belongs to a different era altogether. Well, let me start. Well, let me start with Congressman Rodriguez. Sir, I understand you have filed HB 6694. That's for another 25 years for ABS-CBN. And but yun nga po the question now at this point is should we need some sort of provisional franchise in the meantime that this 25-year franchise will be deliberated on by Congress, assuming that it does begin anytime soon?
Yes, first, good evening, Ami, Ed, and Robbie, and to my very good friend, President of the IBP, Egon Quejosa. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
This noon, we have found 2 measures. The first one is that we filed the bill. The franchise of the ABS-CBN had expired last week for midnight, and so there's nothing to extend anymore. And so we filed a new bill.
A new franchise.
Bills are already with academic. They are not anymore valid because all of them were for extension. So we have to therefore file a new bill to grant a 25-year franchise to ABS-CBN. At the same time, we filed a joint House resolution, number 13, which will give a provisional franchise, not authority, provisional franchise by Congress itself for 2 years from May 4 up to June 30, 2022, the end of our term. And so therefore, these are the 2 measures we have filed so that we will be able to move forward and be able, if we act fast, to restore the services of ABS-CBN on the air.
Congressman, so this is technically...
Kung is that I mean yung provisional franchise sabi niyo kasi joint resolution, I'm just wondering is that what it takes? Hindi siya kailangang law mismo na kailangang pirmahan ng pangulo kasi baka mamaya pagdating sa dulo magkasitaan na dapat ganitong ginawa, dapat ganun ang ginawa. Alam mo na minsan
Baka makuwara to na naman yan.
Well, it is going to be in law, and that is why it will follow the 3 readings in both the House and the Senate, and it has to be signed by the President. This is the House joint resolution, not a House concurrent resolution.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah. Yes. There's a difference.
Joint resolution, it will become law, but it has to be signed by the President.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, Congressman, as you said, technically wala nang i-extend. So this is in fact a new application for a new franchise. Is that technically more complicated? That adds to the process, and anticipating additional questions relative, for example, to if this were simply an extension.
No, well, although it's not it would have been an easier, measure if it's an extension, but it has expired. So what is the thing that we can do? The only thing we can do is to refile a bill that will be for a grant of 25 years. At the same time, a resolution, because it will be difficult to approve the bill for 25 years for ABS-CBN because of the situation of COVID-19. It will be difficult to bring all the stakeholders to get a resolution of the bill, whether to grant 25 years or not, a new 25-year franchise. And because of that, a House resolution will be, a House joint resolution will be faster. If the Senate will also be minded, then we will therefore have our resolution approved. We are running, our time is only up to June 30, only 1 month for us to approve this joint resolution. Sorry.
Congressman, 2016 pa po merong ganyang yung mga proposals to renew the franchise of ABS-CBN. And even if this is new, the same people who will be voting on it. This is the 18th Congress. Ano kayang sa tingin niyo magkakaroon ba ng suporta in the chamber? I know there are several members of Congress who want to grant a franchise or extend or whatever provisional authority. Pero sa tingin niyo anong pag-asa niyan under this leadership in the House?
Yes, it is very unfortunate that precisely 2016 pa, and then 2000 in this particular time there were 11 bills. Unfortunately, there was no the time up to now no action really from the leadership to really have this passed. But I hope this time, because Speaker Cayetano and Chairman Alvarez had been able to write a letter with a House resolution to the NTC, so they have already said that they are in favor of really having a provisional authority from NTC, meaning they're in favor of the continuous operation of the ABS-CBN. So we hope this time we should be able to have it approved already, this House joint resolution, so that we will restore immediately the services of ABS-CBN. We hope that this time the leadership will really act fast on this. We only have 3 weeks to go.
Congressman, I want to get to the leadership later, but I just want to raise this question muna kay Attorney Cayosa. Attorney, do you agree, and do you see this move at the House of Representatives to be the most practical and the most logical path to letting ABS-CBN get back on the air?
Well, I believe the proposal from Congressman Rufus is a good way forward. He's a very veteran legislator, efficient and he knows the ins and outs of Congress. And what is very important is for Congress to decide. And we support any move by Congress in accordance with the rules to settle this raging controversy, because we should learn our lessons. Delays in the past brought forth this controversy. And ang pakiusap po ng Integrated Bar of the Philippines, of course, it is within the power of Congress. The Solicitor General had his legal reasons, NTC had its legal reasons, And we're very happy now that there are proposals in the halls of Congress that will move it forward. Ang pakiusap lang ho namin for all of these actors, including the courts if necessary, to act swiftly and promptly. Kasi nga ho, time is of the essence, and tama ho si Congressman Rodriguez, si Rufus, limited time na lang sila. At kung gugustuhin ho naman nila, at meron namang mga pagkakataon na Congress did its job very quickly. Halimbawa ho, yung bayanihan lo, ang bilis natapos. So, this is a joint resolution. We believe that it is possible at matest na rin talaga natin magbibigay ba ang Kongreso o hindi. Rather than recriminations and further delays, mas maganda ho yung moving forward.
Congressman, may president po ba yung provisional authority o provisional franchise? Pero ano ba nabigyan ng ganyan? I mean, what kind of creature is that? Saka kaya kailanganin niya ng signature ni Presidente for final approval. And kahit pinatawad na niya ang ABS-CBN, we're not sure kung may meron siyang bias against that, no? Hindi natin masasabi when it reaches his desk kung anong gagawin niya. Meron bang president yan?
Well, there's no president to a provisional franchise because it has always been a regular franchise. However, under Article 12, Section 6 of the Constitution, the power to grant franchises is with the Congress, and a provisional franchise will be within the plenary power of Congress to give. Because of lack of material time, then we can give by resolution, which is also law, a provisional franchise. Not a provisional authority, but a provisional franchise. Yeah. If we can give a regular franchise, there is no reason we cannot give a provisional franchise because it's all within Congress to enact.
Kakailanganin
Well, Congressman,
ng NTC. If you order a provisional franchise, kailangan ba ng action on the part of the NTC to form
no action, precisely. No more action, Amy, precisely. We're going to bypass them after they double-crossed us. We cannot therefore be able to put them back in harness in this particular thing. Can you imagine March 10, Commissioner Cordova promise after we have a resolution, that he's going to issue categorically issue a provisional franchise now. May 4 came. May 5, wala pa rin. And that is why it came out instead of a provisional authority, we have 180 degrees turn around and it became a cease and desist order. So that is what it is. So now we will not anymore involve them. In fact, they have really no power to give franchises. They can give authorities. But we in Congress should now act, and we will be the one that will give the provisional franchise because of the time element. Up to June 30, 2022. During this time, 2 years, we can now tackle House Bill 6694 I filed, which is the grant of a new franchise for the ABS-CBN.
Pero Congressman, to be fair din to the NTC, I mean the NTC and the DOJ, they both said during the hearing that they would still prefer to have a law or a franchise in their hands instead of just winging it on their own. So actually, to be fair to them, in the end, it boils down to what happened in Congress, di ba? That still is the primary question. What happened po in Congress? You have Lito Atienza saying that it's Speaker Cayetano's fault. Is it just Speaker Cayetano? Kasi, di ba, it did not happen in a vacuum. For the past 4 years, this has been talked about over and over again every year by both the President and the House leadership. So, ayun po, I suppose the question for a lot of people still is, what happened in Congress?
In fact, dadagdagan ko lang po yung congressman, pati si Solicitor General Jose Calida, yung sabi niya today. Diba, don't blame the NTC, blame Congress.
Well, I would partly agree with that precisely with dilly-dally, there was no immediate action on this. It has reached a point when what we can do is to ask the NTC to issue a provisional authority. I have always stated that it is now, we should get that power and exercise that power by approving the bills that we have filed. And so therefore, it just really, that's correct that we were not able to do it. Now that is water under the bridge, We have seen that it has expired. NTC did not fulfill its promise. So now is the time to move forward, as what the president of the IBP said, Egon, that we move forward. And the only way to move forward is to have these two measures approved, either the
Okay.
House Bill 6694 or the resolution number 30. That's the only way. There's nothing we can do. If you
Okay.
go to the courts, it will take so much time. That will not happen. It will not be able to resolve the issue. If you
Okay.
go to a reconsideration of the NTC it will be a long process. Then you go to the office of the president. So therefore, wala talaga eh. It's really Congress pa rin eh. That's why I urge my fellow the leadership and my colleagues to really work together and approve this joint House
Okay.
resolution.
Okay, Congressman, I appreciate your point about moving forward. I just like to ask Attorney Cayosa. Attorney, ito bang tactic natin of moving forward with a provisional franchise, following up on Ami's question? If I understand it correctly, the interpretation is that the Constitution grants Congress the power to grant a franchise. We're basically creating another category. We're still calling it a franchise para pasok tayo dun sa Constitution. But iba ang Constitution nowadays eh. So we want to ask you, does that still leave room for any constitutional infirmities? Does that still leave any gaps, any rooms for theoretically the Solicitor General, again invoking quo warranto questions as to whether or not a provisional franchise creature, as Ami put it, actually exists?
Well, it is very clear in the Constitution that the power to grant franchise and all the terms and conditions rests with Congress. So Congress can actually grant different kinds of franchises with different conditions. So itong panukala ni Congressman Rufus, hindi ho naman ito naiba. And if Congress so decides, then that should be accorded respect by the executive branch and the judicial branch, being a co-equal branch of government. Kasi yung pagbibigay ho naman ng prangkisa in whatever form and in however with whatever terms is with Congress. So, but then again, theoretically, you cannot stop anyone from complaining and attacking it. But the chances of it succeeding this time, if they just look at the constitutional provisions and the division of powers and authorities, mahihirapan na nilang banggain itong provisional authority na binibigay ng Kongreso.
But Attorney Cayosa and Congressman Rodriguez, of course, I understand your point na we have to move on, and you know we should. However, at the same time, ako po, from my point of view, this is not a case wherein Congress simply forgot to tackle this franchise issue. I mean, it's been front and center now for the past 4 years. So it seems that, at least on the surface, it seems that this was deliberately left out of the discussion for the last 4 years. So I find it a bit difficult to just move forward, and of course that's part of the equation, but should we also be asking the question as to whether or not this was a message, or if this has implications on other institutions of the fourth estate?
Well, we cannot remove.
Go
Sige po,
ahead,
Attorney Cayosa.
Yeah. The best would be for Congress to pass a law so that walang duda. Kaya lang, we have to respect the opinion of Congressman Rufus because he's an insider. He knows the dynamics in Congress. Baka at this point, ito yung doable. And it will give them time to really tackle a long-term law and in the next Congress. So, because we have to look at the other options. One option is to go to the courts. At tama ho naman siya, we're not sure about the courts and we don't even know how long it will take them. The executive may have a change of heart and that's still possible, but we cannot. But I could understand that he's a legislator. I'm sure he knows many things that we don't know, and we trust that this might be a possible thing. The best really is to pass a law. At kung gugustuhin naman talaga ng mga congressman, senador, kaya naman nilang gawin within the remaining days.
Opo, I agree po. But to Congressman Rufus Rodriguez po, my question po has to do with whether or not you think this was a deliberate message that was being given to the Fourth Estate. Kasi nga, it's not like people just forgot about the franchise issue. It's just that Congress ignored the franchise issue, although it was staring us in the face.
Well, Ed, we cannot continue pinpointing, blaming leaderships and so forth. The time now is we have to give the chance to our Congress, and this is one of the measures that is doable. It will be, the time will tell whether our leadership in the House will be able to now really already go into the approval of this resolution or bill. And so I would give a chance to the leadership that this time we have a month to go to be able to forget what has happened in the past. It has happened, but now we cannot be blaming anybody at this time. We now go. We have this 1 month period before July 22nd, the second year of the State of the Nation, and we should be working together. So I am confident that Speaker Cayetano, this particular time, will be able to support these measures because he already said he had a meeting 5 days ago with the senators that indeed the NTC should be able to give a provisional authority, but it did not happen. And so therefore his reaction would be that since the NTC had not fulfilled its promise to issue this, then now is the time for us, Congress, not to abdicate anymore our power and move for the approval of this for the good of the entire country.
Congressman, granted mo approve na yung resolution yun, yung joint resolution. Ulitin ko, you will give executive action, you need approval of the President. And he will be relying on his lawyer, no, his legal advisor. Paano pag sinabing linisol Jen Calida? There's no such thing as a provisional franchise. Parang kung pipirma, bakit pipirmahan niya natin? Anong magiging plan B ng Congress kung nangyari yon?
I don't think Calida will have a leg to stand on to question the provisional authority. Sinabi na ni President Egon Quezon na the power of Congress to grant a franchise may be provisional, may be regular, because that is found in the Constitution. It's a plenary absolute power given only to Congress, not to any other branch of government. And so therefore, whether it's provisional, whether it is regular, I'm sure that the Supreme Court will agree that that is the discretion and the power of Congress to issue, because of lack of material time, to issue first a provisional authority. So I am very, very sure that if this will be passed by the both houses and the President will sign it, because that's now the sense of the two houses, then I don't think there will be any challenge to that. It's now that the President, especially when the President signs already the House joint resolution with the Senate.
Okay, Congressman, maybe you could just give us some idea of what's going on in the background, both in Congress and, for that matter, in any dialogues with the executive. Where do you derive your complete confidence that iba na ang ihip ng hangin ngayon at everybody's on board with regards to this provisional franchise?
Well, we just have to listen to the spokesman, Harry Roque. He said that this is up to Congress. The President is neutral. If Congress would approve this resolution or the bill, then the President will support it, because he said he is neutral and he will allow Congress to exercise his discretion. So I go by what the spokesman said. He is the spokesman of the President, and therefore we just do our job in the House and in the Senate, come up with this resolution, and then present it to the President. I believe the President will sign it.
But with all due respect, Congressman, wala pong bago sa sinabi nyo. Matagal na pong sinasabi ng Malacanang yon that this is in the hands of Congress, the President is hands off, and in the meantime, the lawyer of government is the one who challenges and goes against even the Department of Justice. So again, I just repeat my question, ano pong nagbago doon?
Robbie, the best way to find this out is for Congress to approve it and let the President decide to sign or not. So if we do not do anything in Congress now, then there's nothing for the president to sign when it's approved. And that is why we just have to work on this and have this approved and send it to the president. Now, he has all the powers, either to approve or not. But as we at least stated by Malacanang, is that he's neutral. He doesn't want to interfere with Congress. He wants Congress to do the action. We are going to do it. And then we send it to him. That is the best thing we can do. Ed. And Robbie.
Ed.
Okay. Well, we have to go into gap. Maraming salamat po, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez and Attorney Egon Cayosa of the IDP. Thank you for your insights. Thank you po.
Thank you.
For
Maraming salamat po.
Good evening.
Thank you.
And maraming salamat, Congressman.
And we hope to see you again.
Face to face.
We hope to see you both again in person naman.
And in good health. And in
Ang
good
hirap ng
health.
ganito eh. We are held
Stay
hostage
safe
by
po.
by technology.
Oh,
Maraming
sige.
salamat po.
Stay
So please
safe.
stay with
Thank
us.
you.
We'll be right back after this gap.
Hi, Justice. Good evening.
Hi, sir.
Good evening.
Good
Good po.
evening po. Good evening, Justice.
Good evening.
Senior quarantine kayo. Nakakalabas ba kayo?
No, I'll just stay here.
Marami po intro.
Yeah, okay. I-countdown niyo ako.
Sige po, sige po.
$30 seconds. Welcome back to this special edition of the Chiefs. We'd like to welcome retired Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio of the Supreme Court. Good evening po, sir.
Good evening, Ami.
Good evening po.
Magandang gabi po.
Yes, we're with Robbie Alamboy and Dingao. Okay, we just had in the previous segment two lawyers, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez and Attorney Cayosa. We were discussing the ABS-CBN controversy, and we'd like to hear your views about it. Congressman Rodriguez has filed is seeking a joint resolution for a provisional franchise to be given to ABS-CBN. At the same time, he filed a bill for a new 25-year franchise for ABS-CBN. What do you think from a legal point of view? Pwede po ba yung provisional franchise? Is that possible?
Yes, whether you call it a provisional franchise or a permanent franchise, it's still a franchise. So it's still a law. But the problem is, just before I left the court, I decided a case where the Supreme Court and Bank said a joint resolution is not a law. It just expresses the sense of Congress. You have to file a bill and enact that into law as prescribed in the Constitution. There's a procedure for that. So that was the case of Ang Nars versus DBM, where the government nurses were given salary grade 5 under a law, and subsequently a joint resolution of Congress reduced the salary grade. And the issue was, did the joint resolution amend the prior law? And we resolved that, I was a ponente of that decision, that a joint resolution is not a law. So I would suggest to Congress to just pass a law. I mean, if the franchise has a term of 2 years or 3 years, it's okay. But it has to be a law so that there will be no questions anymore.
Even if the joint resolution is signed by the Kasi yun ang sabi nila, that it will be sent to Malacanang for the president's signature. It will not have the effect of a law in joint
Yes,
resolution.
that was exactly the decision of the Supreme Court last, I think, August or September, just before I left. The joint resolution in that case was also approved was signed also by the president then. So it has to be a bill because the Constitution says a bill has to be filed, approved by both houses, so that it can become a law. There's nothing there in the Constitution which says a joint resolution. And in fact, only a bill that has been approved can be signed by the president. And only a bill can be subject to a veto. So that settled a question, really. So, and that's why the government nurses now are receiving a salary grade 5 entry level.
Justice,
Okay, so
from a layman's
I
point of
think
view,
it's
sorry
just
po,
a matter
pero
of them
opo.
strictly following the procedure as prescribed in the Constitution on the passage of a law, from a bill to a law.
Justice, from a layman's point of view lang po kasi obviously pati si Congressman Rodriguez mukhang hindi rin malinaw sa kanya. Ano po ang kaibahan ng resolution, joint resolution dun versus a law in terms of number one, the wording, number two, the process involved, and number three, of course, the purpose. When it boils down to the nitty-gritty, ano hong pagkakaiba nila? Okay. Sige. Maybe I should restart. Bok, I'll leave you guys muna. I'll restart my internet.
Okay. Naririnig namin. Justice, you cannot hear
Yeah, I
us.
know I can hear you.
Did you hear Ed Lingao's question? He's just asking
sorry.
kung ano daw yung pagkakaiba nung joint resolution.
Joint resolution.
Oo. Ano yung mga pagkakaiba?
Because the joint resolution, for example, the Senate rules, it does not say there that it has to pass 3 readings. So it's at the option of the Senate, but a bill to become a law has to pass 3 readings. And one of the reasons we stated is that it has to be a bill because it notifies the public that this bill could become a law. While a resolution, there's so many resolutions filed in Congress, and many of them become a law. So it's also to give notice to the public that this particular bill could become a law and could bind the citizens. So they have to follow it up also. But it's a resolution.
Yeah, so Justice, same question that we asked the congressman earlier. If this move, and you're saying we can't even call it a law, or we can't even call it a provisional franchise technically, if it stands just on a joint resolution, even with a signature from Malacanang, it will still be standing on flimsy ground. It will be subject to it, and it's vulnerable to a constitutional challenge. And ayun nga, makukuwaran to na naman to.
Well, it could be challenged because it's not a franchise embodied in a law, because Congress must pass a law to grant a franchise, and the joint resolution is not a law.
Okay.
So I think all they have to do is to follow that procedure. It's not so different, but at least it gives notice to the entire country that this bill could become a law.
Justice, yung proposal ni Congressman Rodriguez actually calls for three approvals by both chambers bago maging joint resolution. So, second and third reading din siya. So, yun nga, will that have the effect of a law? Pwede na ba siyang consider na law pag ganon?
No, because we said that for purposes of notifying the Filipino people, it has to be called a bill so that they can be alerted that this bill could become a law. Because as you know, there's so many resolutions, and when a resolution is filed, they just sign it, and you know that. So, and it it doesn't cost them too much trouble by following the procedure for passing a bill, because anyway they intend to follow it. So might as well follow the procedure for passing a bill.
Justice, strictly on that procedural matter, if we're saying na hindi, sundan na lang natin yung proseso and allow all the principles of a transparent and real bill to play, including opening for public consultations, allowing the public to voice their questions and their concerns. What's the fastest process here? Assuming we follow everything to the letter, step by step, what is the fastest theoretically that a provisional franchise bill for ABS-CBN can be considered?
Well, it depends on the members of Congress. If they're oppositionists, then they will try to ask for more time for debates. But I think if it's just for a 2-year period or for a 3-year period, I don't think that many will oppose it.
Yeah. But do you have a theoretical time frame in mind where, assuming walang kokontra, kayang gawin to in what, X number of days, given that we have only a limited number of days before for this Congress?
Well, if it is certified as urgent by the President, then it could pass as quickly as the Bayanihan Act, and you know it was passed expeditiously. But if there is no certification by the President, maybe it takes a few more days. Because if it's not certified, you have to wait every day for 3 days.
Just as you see, Presidential Spokesman Harry Roque said that's already been ruled out kasi according to Malacanang, this is a measure that is for a private interest and not for a public interest. Therefore, it cannot be certified as urgent. I don't know po if that really is the case.
Well, if the President wants it certified as urgent because we need the public information, he can do it. There's no prohibition. But if he doesn't want, then you will have to maybe give it a week if they really want to pass it.
But there is no prohibition, as you said. There is nothing that in the law books that says that hindi pwedeng ganito, hindi pwedeng ganon.
There is no prohibition. It just says that in case of emergencies.
If it's presented as a press freedom issue, does it give urgency to the issue, even if it's a private company's problem?
Well, it's really the call of the President if he wants to certify it or not. But it's just a few days. No? The certification will just save you 3 days.
Yeah. Well, Justice, total nabanggit rin ni Abby yung issue ng press freedom. From your perspective po, what is the impact? What is the implication of what happened yesterday in terms of democratic institutions?
Well, from the legal point of view, once your franchise expires, then it is as if you don't have a franchise.
Opo.
And there is a decision of the Supreme Court in Associated Communications versus NTC, penned by Chief Justice Puno then, that if you don't have a franchise, then the NTC cannot give you any permit. And however, as a practice, when a franchise is being renewed by Congress and it expires while it's still being deliberated, NTC usually allows the franchise holder to continue operating. So that is that practice. So while you cannot say that NTC committed grave abuse by issuing that order, because NTC followed the Supreme Court decision there, you can also cite that in the past, NTC has been lenient when it comes to franchises that expire within the term of Congress when they are deliberating on the renewal.
Okay. But in the meantime, still on the power of the NTC and its mandate, as well as what Congress is insisting, pinramis mo sa amin yan. Those promises were made under oath in both houses of the House of Representatives. But at the end of the day, the NTC says na no, we went back to the law and we made our naggumawa kami ng sarili naming pasya that the law it carries more weight here. What is on what legal standing is the NTC standing up here if Congress says, as they said, you double-crossed our institution?
Well, there's a separation of power. When it comes to implementation, that's the power of the executive. Congress has to pass a law, and it's the executive that implements it. So we are in implementation, and the NTC is saying we're just following the Supreme Court. That once if you don't have a franchise, then we cannot give you a permit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult to fault the NTC here. What should be done is for ABS to bring the case to the Supreme Court, and for ABS-CBN to say that, okay, you have that rule in Associated Communications that if there is no franchise, NTC cannot issue a permit. But our situation is different because in the case of Associated Communications, there was no franchise at all. They never had a franchise. They have filed several times for a franchise but was not approved. And so the NTC said we cannot continue giving you a provisional permit. And that's when the case was brought to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that you don't have franchise. The NTC is correct. It cannot give you a permit. But in the case of ABS-CBN, they had a franchise. They applied for renewal. It's being deliberated now in Congress. But unfortunately, you have a pandemic that prevented Congress from meeting, and you have about 11,000 people whose jobs are at stake. So I think, I'm not saying that the Supreme Court will grant them a TRO, but they can argue that way. And maybe they can say the general rule is if you don't have a franchise, you cannot be given a permit. But if you have a pending application for renewal and it's being heard by Congress, you should allow Congress to decide until the end of the term of Congress. I think that could be an exception to this rule laid down in Associated Communications.
Justice.
So in that case, sir, you'll be asking for a TRO against the cease and desist order of the NTC.
Yes.
Yung binigay
Yes.
kahapon.
Yeah.
But Justice, at the same time, you also did point out kanina na in the past, the NTC ignored the lapsing of the franchises of other stations without doing anything. For example, I think it was the CBCP radio stations, labing isa po yun. 2 taon po na hindi na-renew yung prangkisa nila, and they still kept on operating for those 2 years until the franchise was granted by Congress and not a peep from the NTC. I'm wondering po, kasi we also asked this of Deputy Commissioner Caballos kanina, I'm wondering if there is any problem with the equal protection of the law here na on one hand, pinapabayaan yung iba, on the other hand, mahigpit naman sa isa.
Well, you see, the problem there is you cannot really fault NTC because NTC will always say, we are now following the Supreme Court. There's this decision. So you can just use as an argument that maybe because of these unique circumstances, Congress should be allowed to deliberate and act on the renewal of the franchise. And in the meantime, allow ABS-CBN to continue.
Justice, bakit yung iba sabi ang TRO must be sought from the Court of Appeals instead of the Supreme Court?
Well, normally the decisions of the NTC are appealable to the Court of Appeals. But you can bring this on a transcendental issue because this is really transcendental because this involves 11,000 jobs. And this involves the biggest, maybe one of the biggest networks in the country. So this has national significance that I think the Supreme Court should accept this as a case.
Well, with what's happening now, some people are saying, I know it will take a constitutional amendment, but some people are saying the power to issue franchises should be depoliticized and taken out of the hands of Congress. What do you think of this proposal? I know it will need a constitutional amendment, but do you think it's a sound proposal?
Well, it has always been the legislature that has been granting franchises, but in many instances, the legislature has granted administrative agencies the power to grant franchises, like the power of LFRTB to grant
LTFRB, yeah.
franchises
Yeah.
to transport companies,
Hmm.
to taxis and so on. It can be delegated. It's up to Congress.
Oh,
Hmm.
it can be delegated.
But Justice, there's a 1931 law, Act, I forget the number, but it's the act on radio stations that requires a congressional franchise before anything else.
Yeah,
That even precedes
for-
the constitutional provisions.
Yeah, because Congress has reserved to itself the power to grant radio and TV franchises. So it has to be Congress.
Justice, we can talk to you without mentioning another topic. I know it's what you're busy with after your retirement. Yung pong West Philippine Sea, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but we're still having those problems. Our DFA is filing protests for actions that China is conducting in waters that we are claiming as our own. Ano po yung masasabi niyo? Yung pinaka-latest was they named 80 features in the South China Sea, including, I think, at least one of our islands in the Kalayaan Island group. Anong impact nun with what's happening with people looking at Wuhan as the source of the virus? What do you think is the impact of this on China, or does China even care about what its impact is on its international standing?
Well, the names of the geologic features do not determine sovereignty or sovereign rights. It doesn't matter what name China gives it. It will not confer sovereignty or sovereign rights to China. But I brought this up before, I think 2 years ago. Under the UN system, the International Hydrographic Organization and the Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission determined the names of all of these undersea features beyond the territorial sea. So within our territorial sea, it's up to us. That's completely our right. But beyond the 12 nautical mile, in the absence of a national agency that we name to be the authority to give approved names for all of these undersea features beyond 12 nautical mile, it is the IOH and IHO, these two UN affiliated bodies. So China will file an application to these two UN bodies, UN affiliated bodies, for approval of the names. However, under the rules of these two UN affiliated bodies, if the Philippines will name NAMRIA, our National Mapping Authority
Research
Resources Agency, as the body that will approve names for features below the sea, underwater features beyond our territorial sea, then IHO and IOC will no longer entertain applications for names from other countries. So it's up to us to designate NAMRIA and to inform IHO and IOC that we have already designated NAMRIA and they will not accept applications anymore. So it's our failure. We have not named NAMRIA. We should name NAMRIA so that within our EEZ, beyond our territorial sea, we will have the right to approve names. So that's the failure that we have not corrected for years now, and we should. It's just a matter of designating NAMRIA and informing the two UN affiliated bodies that we have now a national agency to give names. Now,
But
as I said, names don't matter
Hmm.
Like for example, the name China. The name China was not coined by the Chinese. The name China was coined by the Hindus and the Persians. And along the Silk Road, that's how the people referred to China, Qin. And the Western world called China, China. And for the Chinese, they call themselves the Middle Kingdom. It's not China, but eventually they accepted it. So if you follow the principle of China, that since we were the first to name, then their country should not belong to them. So name doesn't matter when it comes to sovereignty and sovereign rights.
Okay. Justice Antonio Carpio, always enlightening to talk to you. Marami pong salamat for joining us amid this quarantine, amid this pandemic. Thank you. And we'll
Thank you,
be back.
Justice.
So, Ami, thank
Yes.
you, Ed.
Maraming salamat po.
Yes, sir. We hope to see you again in person.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening to all.
Don't go away. The Chiefs will be right back.
Okay. Ulan. Tiron, sino ang sunod? Ako ba?
Sir Robbie
Isaac.
po yung last.
Hi, sir.
Hi. Sir Robbie ko po yung
Good evening.
evening.
Sige, okay. Hi, good evening po.
Magandang gabi,
Magandang gabi
Magandang
po.
Hmm.
Sino to?
Sec de la Peña.
Yung mag-host.
Sino mag-intro po?
Di intro lang.
Ako raw.
Si Ravi. Okay.
Hmm.
Sec, bakit virgin coconut oil?
Oo.
Ay, sige. Virgin coconut.
Una kasi may experience na dyan in the past. Oo.
Hmm.
Matagal na yan tinataut dito ni yung kapatid ni Betty Go Belmonte,
Ganun ba?
Grace Glory Go. She takes 2 tablespoons every morning. Ito magandang epekto sa katawan. Parang yung ginagawa yata ng mga taga-ano sa Mediterranean, yung olive oil naman sila.
Wala naman kasing harmful effects eh. Oh.
Pero ang tanong kasi ng iba, Sec, paano kung nagka-boyfriend na?
45 seconds po.
I can explain why it is virgin.
I-countdown nyo ako.
Baka online lang tayo.
I-countdown nyo ako.
Down siya.
30, 20, 10, 'Welcome back, the Chiefs. We're now in the final stage of our conversation. We are now joined by the Department of Science and Technology Secretary Fortunato de la Peña. Secretary de la Peña, welcome po once again to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening po.
Good evening po.
Okay, Sec, we only have a limited time, so we'll jump straight into it. First of all, we wanted to talk about virgin coconut oil. We've been reading about virgin coconut oil again, that there is this initiative in this country to look at the benefits, the potentials, the promises, as well as the limitations of this substance. Where do we really stand here?
Well, we currently have 3 studies that are ongoing. The first one is the in vitro trial of the derivatives of coconut oil, like lauric acid and manulaurine. So we sent them abroad for testing against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is actually where the COVID-19 comes from. So in vitro, meaning to say it's just in the laboratory, no people involved in the trials, and we will see whether the infectivity of the SARS-CoV-2 will be lowered by action from the coconut derivatives that I mentioned. It is something like when you ingest coconut oil in your body, it is actually transformed into certain active, shall we say, substances, and these are the things that can act against viruses. Now, the other two studies that we have are trying to see the effect of BCO on two categories of COVID infected patients, or at least some of them are still probable. So at PGH, our trials will be for the moderate and severe cases, while at the Santa Rosa Community Hospital in Santa Rosa, Laguna, it will be for the ito yung mga suspected and probable cases, no? And we have actually started with the Santa Rosa trial, although the number of enrolled patients is still low, but we will proceed as every day there will be an addition in the number of patients. In PGH, we are still awaiting for the approval of the ethics board, which we hope to come in before the end of the week. The sample sizes are almost the same. 100 for PGH and 90 for Santa Rosa Community Hospital, and each number is divided into the BCO group and the non-BCO group. So we will see and compare at the end.
Now, I mean, Secretary, this is virgin coconut oil. Wala tayong ibang pinag-uusapan. Does that carry any risks?
Wala naman, because BCO has no harmful effects and no toxicity. Unless you take too much of it, you might have loose bowel movement. But otherwise, it's safe. Okay.
No, it's just a common food as far as. But I'm just curious because you mentioned that this will still have to go before an ethical board. If there are no safety questions, what other ethical questions remain?
Any trial involving humans or even animals has to get an ethics board approval.
Secretary,
potentially, what could be the effect of itong paggamit ng BCO? Could it possibly be on the speed of replication, on the ability of the virus to enter a human cell, or is it on the lethality of the virus itself?
Well, mostly it's really on the recovery side.
It's recovery.
Or if it's not yet proven that you have it, but you have the symptoms, then the objective is to at least give you comfort. If you have the symptoms like coughing or difficulty in breathing, this could probably help you.
Parang it's strengthening the body's response system to the virus.
Yes,
it's more of that.
Secretary, I know people who take virgin coconut oil first thing in the morning, 2 tablespoons. Nakakalakas daw talaga. In your case, what got you to link VCO with COVID specifically? Kasi marami naman tayong health supplement din, and we have a lot of natural herbal supplements. Why VCO in particular?
We are studying, we have started with BCO, but we will also try 2 other formulations that come from Tawa-Tawa and from Lagundi, because all of these 3 have already shown antiviral properties. For example, the BCO was already tried by Dr. Conrado Dairit 2 decades ago at San Lazaro for HIV patients. Now, the results were good, except that there were a few enrollees or a few patients that participated. But there were studies also in other countries like Argentina and one of the South Asian countries that were published and saying that it has antiviral properties. In the case of 2 others which we might be trying, like Lagundi and Tawa-Tawa, each of these has gone through first stages of clinical trials, but for different diseases. Like Lagundi is really for the respiratory ailments, ubo, okay? Kappa, for example, and the Tawa-Tawa naman has been tried for dengue. Although it is not yet declared as a medicine, it's just a health supplement. It requires further clinical trials for a bigger population to be able to have better proof that it can be medicine. So those are the reasons why we are starting with this. So actually, we have been getting so many suggestions, try bawang, try this, try that. But if there has been no documented, shall we say, evidence yet, we will give priority to those that has been documented before.
Secretary, so follow-up ko lang po yung tanong kanina ni Ami, because as she said niya, marami na mga tao who are taking VCO, virgin coconut oil, right now. But with everybody's, of course, concerns over COVID and your message na wala namang risk, assuming that you don't take too much, diba? Public service announcement na po, what's too much? Because a lot of people might be very eager or overly eager to get into this dahil wala namang mawawala. But what is too much?
Well, maybe we can get guidance from the dosage that will be given to our patients. Maximum that will be given will be 3 tablespoons per day, but you don't have to take it in one meal. Okay, so for example, in the trials that we are having in Santa Rosa, they are distributed over the meals. Okay, so actually part of the it's mini mix yun sa meal. So we have to train even the caterer, and there is a certain number of days that they are required to take it. So even if they have recovered and then been taken home, we require them to finish 28 days of taking BCO.
Okay.
Secretary, may dalawang challenge si Presidente sa mga scientists, the medical community. Yung isa, vaccine daw for COVID. He will give millions sa Filipinong makaka-develop. And another, kung sino daw makaka-develop ng sarili nating yung ventilator. Anong natin yan? Sa dalawang
for the ventilators, we actually have 2 ongoing projects. Even before the COVID-19 came, our main objective is really to produce our local ventilators because the imported ones are very expensive. So small hospitals that can accommodate 10 ICU patients probably has only 1 or 2 ventilator, okay, because of the high cost. So we are in the first project. We are already in the prototyping stage, but we also encountered difficulty because of the high demand for ventilators and for parts from the supplying countries. Okay, our prototyping activity has been delayed, and we are trying to get the help of our own electronics company here for the supply of parts. There's another project which was undertaken by a well-known doctor, but this was for babies, okay, ventilator for babies, and the project now is how to convert it to adults. Okay, so we will be supporting the safety studies for that particular project. So there is hope that there might be a group that can get the offered reward of the president, because we are also probably supporting two more projects on this just to hasten the process. Now, for the vaccines, even WHO has stated that for any vaccine, the minimum time that is required, if you will start from the beginning, is 1.5 to 2 years. And since we do not even have a vaccine center or institute in the Philippines, we have had no shall we say, track record in developing any vaccine yet. We decided that the strategy is to partner with countries where we have existing science and technology bilateral agreements, so that whoever is already advanced in the development and ready for clinical trials, we will be partnering with them by having the clinical trials here in the Philippines. That way, if it works, it is easier to get FDA approval.
How about development of a cure? Hindi naman cure, yung treatment.
treatment.
Meron ba
All I have been discussing the BCO, the Tawa Lagundi, and
Kasama
then
na
we are also doing the WHO clinical trials. We have already started. There are 4 medicines or therapies that have been included by WHO, remdesivir, which is an antiviral medicine, the malaria medicines, which are chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. We also have the medicines for HIV, lapinavir and riponavir. And a 4th trial will be a combination of the lapinavir, riponavir, plus interferon beta. So we have already started. There are 22 hospitals which are participating. So far, with our initial start, which has just been a few days ago, there are all 40 enrolled patients in 8 of the hospitals that volunteered to join. And today, we are expecting the arrival of remdesivir and interferon coming from abroad.
Okay. Secretary, in the meantime po, at the current moment, pagdating po sa testing, where are we now with regards to the testing kits that we've developed here at home? And for that matter, sa pangkabuuan, yung pong sistema ngayon ng gobyerno, everything that goes into that ecosystem of testing our people.
Okay, our participation is only in the developing of the diagnostic kit, which is based on the polymerase chain reaction technology, and because that was the one given by DOH as the gold standard. So we did our research on that. Fortunately, we had started on a diagnostics program. Probably since almost 8 years ago, and we have successfully developed the dengue diagnostic kit, which has been commercialized already by the same group of researchers who put up their own technology company, Manila Health Tech. And in 2018, the dengue diagnostic kit of the Philippines won a gold award in Geneva from the World Intellectual Property Office or organization. Now, that was soon to be followed by the leptospirosis diagnostic kit. And however, COVID came in January, okay? And so we had to shift the attention to COVID-19. And since we had the technology platform already, we were able to come out with the diagnostic kit using the PCR technology, and were able to get FDA approval on April 3. After April 3, it was what we call implementation phase, wherein the first products, which consist of 1,300 kits or 26,000 tests, were to be given to the 5 hospitals that volunteered to join in the DOST project. So this will be ongoing until May 15. After May 15, all the rest of the production will be for commercial sale, and orders have been placed according to Manila Health Tech, mostly from hospitals, from LGUs, and also from big companies which intend to donate them to hospitals.
Secretary, you mentioned...
Mr. Secretary,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, sir, what else does your department need as far as pushing forward with these with all these initiatives? Do you have enough funding already as it is, or would you need more for research and development? Kasi some have pointed out na puro tayo research. At least one legislator said that.
But do you know how much of the total government budget is going to research? It's 0.4%, not even 1% of the total budget. And so we had to prioritize. For example, this year, we are practically using up all our R&D budget for health on COVID-19. And probably by the end of May, we don't have any more money for other research in the area of health. But fortunately, DBM told us if you run out of money and you are still doing researches on COVID-19, just approach us and we will help you.
Secretary,
just a good time for you to push.
Can you compare that with other countries, yung
Yes.
budget nila on R&D? Because Israel, like countries like Israel, napakataas ng budget nila for R&D. Sa Southeast Asia na lang, Southeast Asia, compared with...
The average worldwide is 1% of GDP. 1% of GDP. Okay, so, but in our case, we are still in the 0.15% of GDP. We are very far.
With what's happening now, sa tingin nyo, you can ask for a bigger budget.
I pray.
Sana. And you also mentioned we don't have a vaccine institute. Is this one of the proposals that you're thinking of as a result of this pandemic?
We are thinking about it, but there is also a proposed. Someone from the legislature is proposing a disease control center similar to the
Yes.
U.S. disease control center. But at the OST, we are also planning to revive what we had before. We had a pharmaceutical division, and however, it was from evolution and rationalization. It's not existing anymore, but we would like to bring it back.
Will that need legislation? Or-
No, we can add it to our existing institutes.
For budget purposes?
Budget we have to ask from DBM, and it's also up to us to prioritize the use of our research budget. We can put some of it into that.
Well, Mr. Secretary, it is a good time for you to make that big push for more funding for research and development, because it is one aspect that a lot of people just push by the wayside. And in fact, you had not one senator making a jab at how much time we spend for research.
Yeah, we try our best. Media has been helping us, and of course, some people in the legislature are also helping us. But I keep on hoping. I have been optimistic all my life here. I never left the country. Even all my classmates, 50, we graduated in 1969. Maybe 60% of our class went abroad. I'm come from the College of Engineering, but I have always been optimistic that we will move forward.
Secretary, maybe you'd like to share the optimism as well, not just with government and the public sector, but with the private sector. Give us an idea, not only of whatever you can call in terms of a science and technology industry in the Philippines, as well as some wins that you may want to highlight in terms of a small private R&D companies in the Philippines that have successfully filed for their own patents and are now monetizing the fruits of their science and research.
Well, the first commercialization that we had was for Lagundi, okay? And actually, the research was done as early as the 1980s. The initial agreements that we had gave us a few thousands of royalties for the first few years. But all of a sudden, it became popular internationally because of winning certain awards abroad. So all of a sudden, our royalties for the Lagundi rose to millions. When the Technology Transfer Act was created, it was stated there that the benefits, the economic benefits from intellectual property should all go to the institution and the researchers who did the research, and not to the ones funding. So that actually would prevent us anymore as DOST, as a funding agency, to get royalties and give it all to the implementer. So that is one success, and of course there are other successes, not necessarily in the drug business. In food, we had some success, and hopefully we can also have some success in the area of mass transportation. I think when I first guested here in the Chiefs, I talked about the hybrid trimaran, which we are supposed to launch this July. But the speed of completion has been affected already also by the ECQ. But we are very confident that we will finish it. It is the first of its kind that will be using partly the wave energy to supplement the fuel that it uses. So there are a good number, and I think our hope is that the country will attract investors who are which are technology based or oriented, not just the assembly or the testing type.
Mr. Secretary,
And,
other than Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we are now focusing on startups because we have been experiencing some successes in startups. For example, even in supporting the needs of DOH now with some facilities like the specimen collection booths and other facilities that are needed. Startups have been involved already, and it's good that we had passed the Innovative Startup Act and the Innovation Act, and that at least justifies our giving of help to startups. Otherwise, if we give help to them and we don't have enough basis to give them because they are private, we will be questioned by COA. But now with the law, we can proceed.
I don't know if you're monitoring this, Mr. Secretary, pero kamusta po ang uptake ng STEM track? And for that matter, STEM courses sa senior high school all the way to college. Are our young people getting more attracted to science and technology and the maths?
I don't know the statistics of CHED, but if we base it on the statistics of applications to the DOST scholarships, it has really tripled in the last 5 years. Okay, so maybe 4 years ago it was at the level of 30,000 applicants a year, and last year it was already at 112,000. The number of applicants. And so, fortunately, our DBM has been supportive in the area of human resource development, and we have also been able to even triple the number of scholars that we are getting. So, last year, we already took in 9,000 new scholars for freshmen, but this year, we hope that we can get us at least 1,100 new freshman scholars. This is in addition to the increase in enrollment for MS and PhD in the different fields. So we are I am really optimistic.
Okay.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña ng DOST. Thank you po for joining us tonight.
And thank you for
Maraming salamat
inviting
po.
me here. Maraming salamat din. Thank you, Ami.
And
Thank you,
best of luck
Robbie.
po sa best of luck po sa inyong pagsusuri doon sa Virgin Coconut Oil.
Thank you. Okay. Salamat.
Okay.
And that's it for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Edwin Gao, One News.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.